Hello, everyone. Can continue going along here. Hopefully you're able to edit data schema okay there. Let us know if any questions come up. Oh, looks like we just got one. Okay, someone can't view the data after you run the workspace. So one thing you might want to quickly check, and I'll just show this. I don't know if this is what's happening to you, but some people do get confused by this. Caches are created on at every point of the workspace up to the thing that's actually written. So you should be able to inspect something like the point cache here. You should have a cache if you run the workspace. You can click the cache there to inspect it. As long as you have under the run menu, enable feature caching is on, those caches will be generated. You can click one to inspect it. You can't immediately inspect the written data. It doesn't have a cache there. If you want to inspect written data, you have to select the feature type you want to inspect and then click view written data. And then it should show up if you've written it correctly. If you don't see anything here, then probably something about your configuration of your workspace is incorrect because it should show up. So I would have a look at that, and then if you're having issues, let us know and we can come help you out. Yeah, Omar, try changing the zoom settings on your browser. That's control minus or command minus. It'll make the chat smaller, but it should hopefully give you a bit more room on your virtual lab. Also, make sure you're full screening it and you're giving it as much space as possible. It'll expand to fit the space you give it. So you should be trying to give it as much room as you can. Hopefully that helps, Omar. Let us know if you need someone else to take a look at it. Okay, that's editing data schema. Let's have a look at map data schema. So we already talked about the issues we're sort of running into here because we have, a mismatch in the attribute names. There's the link to the section we're on, by the way. So what are our actual goals here? Well, the main thing is to make sure that first name port gets some data. We have that red warning here. We need to make sure that's fixed. So what's the easiest way to do that? Well, I will quickly show you. There's sort of a cheater way to do it, which we don't actually recommend, but we get asked about it. So I'll quickly show you. If you've used Generate Workspace, and only if you've used Generate Workspace, you can do something like this. You can actually hit Follow Presenter if you haven't, if you want to see what I'm showing. You can actually drag between attribute ports to map. So you can do something like that, which tells FME, it basically tells FME rename first to first name so that they match. But we don't like to do that. And the reason is, if I do this, and you get this workspace, you'll have no idea that there's a rename happening. It's really not obvious. That rename is quite hidden. It's hidden in these expanded sections. And so what you might see is you just, see your source data and you see the data you're getting and you're like, wait, where is this coming from, right? So to me, that's actually confusing. So we actually don't recommend using this method. So I'll delete that. I just wanted to show you because people ask about it. And the reason we don't recommend it is because it's sort of hidden. What's less hidden is to use a transformer to do that rename so it's easier to see it, right? So what we can do is we can click this connection line near the beginning to have it selected. And then I can start to type in the name of a transformer. So I'll start to type attribute. This is that quick add dialog again. Remember, you won't really be prompted. You just start to type. So if I type attribute, you can see here are all the attribute transformers. There's quite a lot of them. And if we were just doing a rename, we could use the attribute renamer, and that's actually what we recommend. If you're only doing one attribute operation, it's a bit clearer to just use one. But we're actually going to do a couple different things to map the schema here. So I'm going to add a trusty attribute manager, which is a very popular transformer because it lets you do a lot of different things to manage your attributes. So I'll type that in and then I'll hit enter or double click to select it. And you'll see because I had that connection line selected before I started using quick add, it will automatically be hooked up along that connection line. Steve, yes, Quick Add is still available in FME Desktop 2020. I think it's been in FME Desktop for quite a while, or FME Workbench for quite a while. So yeah, we've added an attribute manager now, and because that connection line was selected, it's automatically hooked up, which saves you some time. You don't have to fiddle with the connection lines. So let's double click the attribute manager to open it, and you'll see pretty much all transformers have a slightly different dialog here that lets you configure how they work. The attribute manager is a table, and it shows you here's the attributes that are coming in. You can't edit these, those are fixed. Here is the output attribute name that's coming out, which you can edit. You can set a value for the attribute. You can change its type. This is new in FME 2023. You can manage attribute types in the attribute manager. You can also manage those on your writer feature types. And then the action column will just summarize basically what action you've taken. So what we're going to do now is basically just redo all the steps we've already done, because we need these features to match in terms of schema when they arrive at that writer. So I will add the underscore and name to my first attribute. And you can see actually what FME will do is it'll look ahead to any writer feature types that are connected downstream and look at the schema to help you match it. So it's looked and found. There's one called first underscore name. So I can even just select that to fill it in. And then just like before, I'm going to move that down one position. So it's the second attribute. And I'll find longitude and latitude. I'll shift or control click to select more than one. And then I'll hit remove button. And that will update the action. So they don't like disappear like they do in the feature type. And that's just because they'll still be here. We're just showing that they're being removed. So now I've repeated those steps, and I'll click OK. And so now all of the features after the attribute manager will have the correct schema. And we'll see that this has become green because it's receiving an attribute with that name. So that's pretty straightforward. We've changed the schema and everything looks good. So now you're probably wondering two things, or you should be wondering two things. The first is, what do I do about this other feature type, which is exactly the same, and I wanted to have exactly the same schema, but it's messed up because we never edited it. And you're probably wondering, do I have to edit it again? That seems kind of repetitive. The answer is no. And it's related to another question, which is, why did I do this twice? Like, that also feels a bit repetitive. So the answer to that is that you don't have to do it that way. This is in many ways the way that we teach it, because it's important to remember that you have a writer schema and you need to set that, and you need to make sure that incoming features are matching that. And one way to do that is to edit and then map. There is another way to do it though, which is that, and this is, to be honest, what I do more of the time, just because I'm not dealing with the more kind of finicky workflows that might require editing and then mapping. Often what I'll do is I'll use transformers to get the features like I want them. And then I'll just tell the writer feature type, just accept whatever I give you and use the schema of the incoming feature. And the way you can do that is opening up a writer feature type, going to the user attributes tab, and we'll do that with the incomplete one now so we can fix it. And you'll notice there's an attribute definition mode selector at the top with 3 options. We've been using manual mode, which lets you just edit this like a table, and that edits the schema. But there are 2 other modes. So if I change to automatic, you'll see this is no longer a table I can edit. It gets grayed out, but it also changes to match the features that are coming in. So if I click OK, that actually fixes my problem in just a couple clicks, because now this feature type will just take the schema of the features that it's connected to. And if I delete this, you'll see it says, oh, I don't know what my schema is anymore because I'm not connected to anything. And if I connected to something else, it would just adopt that schema. So that can be quite handy. I use that a lot. But one thing to note, and it's gotten better in FME 2023, but identifying the type is a little bit iffy with automatic mode, because FME is having to basically guess what the type is that's coming in. So sometimes you know, if you're going to use automatic mode, pay attention to that to make sure that you're still getting the right type set. if you see they're incorrect, you can always hit manual again, and now you've got the change schema. You can just change this to be whatever you were actually expecting. So you can go to automatic and then back to manual if you want. The other thing to note about automatic is it'll take whatever it's connected to, but it does still need to be defined at authoring time. So while you're building the workspace, you need to have a defined schema for automatic to work. Dynamic is another thing, which is really cool, but is a bit trickier to set up. And dynamic is, we'll take whatever feature, the schema of the feature you give us, and we don't even need to know what it is when we're defining the workspace. So that can be really handy if you expect the schema of your data to change. And we have a whole advanced section of our course, section of our advanced course that deals with dynamic workflows. So we won't get into that today because it is more complicated. But just so you're aware of the difference, automatic, you connect up a stream of features. It will use their schema. Just don't forget to check the types. And then dynamic, it will take whatever you give it, even if it's not defined in advance. And that just takes a bit more effort to set up. But so yeah, we'll leave this one at automatic. So now that's basically fixed. And we could have done the same thing down here. We just like to show you manual mode as well. Yeah, so in automatic, you cannot edit anything. These are all grayed out. So if you want to edit anything, you'll have to go back to manual mode. You could edit the width over in the attribute manager if you wanted. So you can edit the width in the parentheses here. That's new for 2023. So if you did want to use automatic mode and then just adjust the width in an attribute manager, you could do that. Okay, that is mapping. So go ahead and add the attribute manager, configure it, and have a look at those feature type definition modes and update the business owners incomplete to automatic. I'll give everybody, well, let's take a 10-minute break. We're at the top of the hour, and then we'll take 10 minutes after that break to work on map data schema. So I'll take a 10-minute break as well, but I'll be back and can answer questions, and we'll see you around 10:20 a.m. Pacific. Hi, everyone. Hope you had a good break and were able to work on the exercise. So we had a lot of good questions came in. I'll just quickly address a few of those in case you missed them. So one, quick reminder, make sure you have override existing database set to yes on your writer. Otherwise, you'll be appending features, so you'll end up with more than 100 in the business owner's feature type. We had another question, why did yesterday we have to set or check to see that lat and long were set to X and Y coordinate, and today the geometry just seems to appear? And the reason is some formats in FME just support having geometry, and they will just have geometry when you read them in. And if you look at them in Visual Preview, they'll have geometry. And that's because usually there's some kind of geometry column in the data that stores that. It doesn't get exposed as an attribute because it isn't normally written as an attribute, but it's in the underlying data model. So PostGIS can do that. Any other spatial format can do that. But you can also create geometry. So we created geometry on the reader yesterday from Excel, and you can do that with CSV as well. There's also transformers that let you create geometry from numerical, coordinates and that kind of thing. So, or from well-known text or whatever else you want to use. So yeah, it's pretty flexible there. It's just basically if there's geometry in the source data, FME will read it in and you'll be able to view it. For those of you wondering about completing the exercises after the course or on your own time, as I've said yesterday, all of the exercises, the instructions, and data is available on the Academy using the same links we're using during the course. If you need to get access to FME, Ryan did send out a on-demand link. You can request a virtual machine. The Academy currently has instructions mostly for FME 2023 for today and yesterday, but the rest of the course will be the old videos, which are 2022. But we will send unedited recordings of the course this week as well. And then we'll edit those and get them up to the Academy later, probably in the new year sometime.